conclude tonight's meeting of the Armada Village Council. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Shaw?
Here.
Clark?
Here.
Conan?
Here.
Adair? Here. Barzak? Here. My goodness, I am having a hard time. For some, no, I know, I'm getting there. Belkey?
Here.
And, who did I miss?
Me.
Sturrock.
Here.
Sometimes it doesn't hurt.
You have the agenda before you. Are there any changes?
We're going to remove item new business G.
Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, then we have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion by Clark, supported by Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay. Do we have any citizen comments? No citizen comments? We have no presentations tonight. Administrative reports. Who would like to go first?
I've got mine in here, I'll go first.
Okay.
I have the Armada Police Department's Police Action Report for the month of September 2024. Traffic tickets issued were 30. Entry without permission was 1. Assisted the Armada Township Fire Department inside the village, 13. Domestic assault or arrest was 0. Assist with police agency, 2. Suspicious situations, 6. Civil disputes, 2. No dog complaints, no disturbances. Alarm for an open door was 1. Domestic disturbance, 2. 1 lockout. Death investigation, 0. Juvenile related issues, 2. Damaged property, 0. Mental stress situation, 0. Warrants for arrest, 0. Miscellaneous calls for service were 10. 2 missing persons. Lost and found property was 3 reports. Theft was 0. Retail fraud was 0. Internet fraud was 0. Motor vehicle accidents was 1. As of August 21st, 2024, the miles on patrol car number 431 equal 106,095 miles. On 432, the F-150 equal 42,961. 433, the unmarked Dodge is 64,557. 4 more Armada officers went through the state-required active shooter training. Got that pretty close to feeling that up.
Is that supposed to be as of August 21st, Joe, or should that be a September date? Since it's September's.
It says something.
No, but here it says as of August 21st, 2024,
okay.
miles on the patrol car. I mean, if that's what's there, it's fine, we just don't know.
September.
Should be September 21st?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, does that cover you, Joe?
Until we get to the agenda.
Okay. Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Planning
Okay.
Commission, we didn't have a meeting last month, but I do see we have, somebody's gonna be putting in they're asking to do a wellness center. I'm not sure where it's gonna be, I don't see the specifics, but, 22944 West Main Street.
I think it's in Cordy's,
And that.
in a strip
that's
mall
what I
by
was thinking.
Vineyards, yeah.
Okay. That's what I was assuming too. So that's it, we'll see how that goes.
Okay, keep us posted on that. That sounds like something good.
Maybe it's a metaphysical.
Okay, are there any Any other commission reports? Amy?
I just wanted to update everyone a little bit, that considerable concrete removal and replacement is currently underway on First Street at the Prospect Street intersection. And the work was needed at the four corners to bring the work up to current code with respect to the Americans with Disability Act. The contractor removed and replaced the sidewalk and curb at the northeast corner of the intersection as planned, but while working in the area, additional survey shots were taken regarding the existing curb and gutter between the new curb and existing catch basin at the north side of the intersection. And I have a picture if anyone wants to see it, but there was a standing water problem, so they had to address that because, you know, you don't want water, it's just gonna wreck everything and it's defeating the purpose.
That's
Anyway.
over on the school side. or-
Yes,
yeah,
yes. So, regarding the catch basin, I have a picture of the existing structure. Telto's indicating that given the unsound nature of the majority of the structure, they will be purchasing a concrete cone or flat top to assist making this stable. They're concerned that the pay item for this work may not cover their cost for it. So, I have a list of, additional costs that are probably gonna be needed, you know, for this project. After the review, it appeared reasonable that since the concrete crew was on site, it would just make sense to repair the deficiencies in that area. So no further work would need to be done in the near future. So it's pretty much been approved to be done. The cost is about $5,800. So just wanted to let everyone know.
You don't know when they'll start paving, do you?
No, I can find out tomorrow.
You know, should be getting pretty close.
On First Street, waited all this length of time we should have put gravel down before, it looks better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, we've been
4
riding
years.
down it, Steve and I, it's a lot more,
Yeah.
smooth
Yeah,
now.
I can't wait to see
Um,
it.
Okay. Ross, would you like to go next?
Yeah, about 6 to 9 months ago, we did submit to the state Department of Energy, Great Lakes and Environment for what's called a Technical Managerial Financial Grant, which was identified to help us identify and galvanize service lines in our village residents and businesses. We did receive a promise of $61,020 for the effort. The hook was we had to do the work first, spend the money, and then submit for reimbursement. So over the summer, I'm sure we inconvenienced some people. We did what's called hydrovacing of approximately 40 service lines to help determine the line composition. We also did a small amount of upfront engineering work through road. Both of those were completed and we submitted here recently for the reimbursement. Had to work through just my lack of understanding of the reimbursement process. We got that straightened out, and we did receive a week or so ago reimbursement of $54,945, from the state, which leaves us about $6,075 of the grant. That $6,000 is going to go to additional engineering for to help us plan lead service line replacement moving forward, and there's an awareness campaign in there. We need to let village residents know what to expect when we start to do this. We haven't spent that money yet, so we haven't requested those funds. That'll happen over the next year. Let's see. I'll be working some additional future grant opportunities with our grant writer to find funding for lead service line replacement. It's a related issue. You might have seen in the news lately that it was announced that the federal government's going to be issuing a final rule to have all lead service lines and galvanized lines replaced within 10 years. I did
mentioned this about 4 or 5 months ago, kind of saw it coming. The original time horizon was 20 years. We've really not done any substantial replacement. All of our efforts have been to try to identify what we had, because we didn't really know in a lot of cases. I think we've got a fairly good handle on that, but now the timeline has been changed to 10 years, and I'd suggest it's a federal mandate. It's going to be a state mandate soon. We still need to understand the timing, but I'd suggest it's a good thing, not a bad thing. Lead in your drinking water is not good for your health. It's hazardous, and we need to get that stuff replaced. And so once we complete this current effort to identify these lines and submit our information to Eagle, which is due this Wednesday by midnight, we will then start working in earnest on lead service line replacement. Good news, if anything, is we don't have as many lines as we that are lead or galvanized, mostly galvanized, not lead. But we do need to get those replaced. It's called the Complete Distribution System Material Inventory. You gotta have an acronym for it, CDSMI. A lot of work and a lot of detail work. So I am crashing to try to get that done. I don't anticipate an issue. We've got about 654 service lines in the village, and I've got to identify at 4 locations in those lines what the material is, how we determined it. It's a lot of information. So I tell you that because I'm gonna give you the mea culpa on this list of things you wanted to know that I do for, as the water commissioner. I've had indicated I was gonna get you that at this meeting, because I took a pass at the last meeting. I don't have it done. I haven't been able to really put the time to it.
Well, Ross, when I asked you for that, I wasn't trying to tie you into the next meeting. It's just, I know you do a lot, you sometimes sign some reports, and we just wanna make sure we have something on file. Also, we wanna look to see if some of the things you do, maybe Dave should be doing, and, so anyhow,
Sure.
we're not trying to put the pressure
Yeah.
on you to get it done right away, just to
No.
eventually,
No, it's a good request, and I've often thought I needed to get that stuff together. It's just something else always gets in the way of doing it. This stuff that I'm doing now is certainly taking all my time, and I don't. But there's nothing difficult about it. But there's a lot of ad hoc things that come up. Eagles, first of all, put in a lot of new requirements that we have to manage and oversee. There's a lot of standard reports. These are things that we didn't anticipate when we did the F&B contract. But one of the things I also do, as an example, is when Becky has a problem water sewer customer, she usually calls me. So I've spent about 5 hours over the last 2 weeks just contacting customers and talking to them and going through the
take your
situation.
time, take your time.
Yeah, so I do want to get it in because I want to see the sheet too. It's a lot of stuff, and we just need to, as we move forward, we want to plan for somebody to be able to do that, because I'm not going to be on council forever, and I'm not going to be the water commissioner forever. Anyway, that's my mea culpa, so I apologize and appreciate council's patience on that. We'll talk about the signage when that comes up, I think. And yeah, we took off that other item. Yeah, my term ends in November, so no need to resign early. It's October, so.
What does CDSMI stand for?
It's Complete Distribution System Material Inventory.
See, I know you brought that up, because I was gonna bring it up during the council comments, but, yeah, Ross at first was gonna resign from the zoning board of appeals, but because his term was up at the end of November, he said, he'd take it till then. So, again, Just you guys think about it, if any of you would like to volunteer to be on that, I'll certainly be, receptive to that. So anyhow, thank you for your service on that.
Oh,
Zoning
thanks.
Board of
Thank you.
Appeals. That cover you?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
Good.
Moving on, anybody else have anything to report?
I have one.
Oh, sure, go ahead, Ann.
You might have noticed on your summary sheet of our accounts, under the CDs, the two CDs that have matured, I put that into the general savings account, while they were trying to figure out how to open a new one for us. We have not had a good response from the bank we were at. So I would like council's permission to move that money to the bank where we have the other CD currently.
From,
Right, and he's offered us 4.5%, I believe.
and does she have to, do we have to pass a motion on that, or to give her the
I
authority?
think normally it's that, when the cards come in, don't we, have to authorize the signers? We have to approve the
Yeah, but
authorized signers on the
That's
account.
usually, we get when
Yeah.
it changes.
Right.
like-
Yeah.
That we've got done,
We currently have a CD at
At
that
that
bank.
bank, so you already have that.
Right,
so, but if she moves money from one bank to the other bank,
I would think, I mean,
I thought she could do that as treasurer.
well, it really depends on the investment policy, right?
Yeah.
And I'd have to,
It's gotta be a bank that's on that policy.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. which
I know
is-
you moved some stuff
Yeah.
between the
They are.
banks.
Yeah.
We already brought it
so
down.
that bank that you would move it to, again, probably has already been
Approved,
approved.
as- yeah,
Right.
it
So I
has.
think, I think you probably are okay, because they would be compliant.
And then that will eliminate anything in the prior, in the other bank.
CD wise, yes, our accounts are still there.
Okay.
The other thing is, it had been mentioned that Curtis, you were going to look into how that money was divided over, we think it's divided over 3 accounts. And can I invest, like create a separate CD, separating those into those accounts now? So for example, if water was one and water needed money, then I would only have to cash in that one.
Correct.
Okay, and if that's okay to do that?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I don't recall, and again, I'm only at one meeting a month, but I don't recall a lot of council approvals for, changes in investments. I think
Yeah, as long
typically
as
the
it's a bank
investment
that's listed.
policy,
Yeah,
as
I
long as
just
that
wanted to
bank
make
meets
sure.
the requirements of the investment policy, I think we're good. But I don't think you have to get council approval to move funds to
Okay.
an approved
Okay,
institution.
just like for them to know, trying to
Right. No,
get
that's
the best
better.
option that they can.
Right.
So,
Is this one with municipal, general, and
Correct.
that
And
was
sewer, I think it's sewer, municipal,
sewer,
general.
in general,
Correct.
the
It's a
three.
third.
Right, and that is the split, right? So
Correct.
perfect,
That cover you, Ann?
yes, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Dave, can I go real quick?
Yes,
Less than a minute.
you can go really quick, that's a good way to put it.
Dan at F&V is working on fixing the drying beds. DPW, Becky, and him had put in some time. They haven't been used in some time, so he's still working on that. Secondly, Dennis Ryan, our Eagle contact for many years.
Yes,
He is announced he's retiring. I think it's December 1st. So as I find the new person, I'll let everyone know. But we wish him luck in retirement. Yeah, that was it.
okay, yeah, Dennis has had that job a long time now.
Yeah, it is.
I dealt with him when I was the sewer guy, and I know Lyle did.
Yeah.
You do have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, moving on then to, under general business, our consent agenda, which is the minutes and the payment of the bills.
I would resolve to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Adair, supported by Clark, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Old business, we have none. And now, the thing we've been waiting to
I
hear.
waited the night.
Like a kid.
Everybody knows Curtis here, I believe.
Better watch it, Dave, Michelle.
Amy, have you met Curtis? Curtis, this is our new member, Amy
Hi.
Barzak.
to meet you.
And,
Right, late month to get right, Dave.
okay.
Oh, just a little bit.
Michelle, can you shut this row off so it shows
That
us?
row?
This row of lights.
No,
No,
It's
the whole room or nothing.
it just would show a little bit.
It would.
It plays heck with the camera though when you do.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis McBride. I'm a CPA for McBride Manley Company. With me this evening are Amy and Chelsea. They were also key members of the audit engagement team this year. We are here to present the results of our audit for the village for the period ending March 31st, 2024. Now, I know sometimes it's kind of hard to see up here on the projector, so we've also handed out a hard copy of the presentation, so it should be easier for you to follow along that way. Now, before I get into the slides, I first want to talk about our audit opinion. There are three types of opinions you can receive from your auditor. The first one is what we call a clean or unmodified audit opinion, which means that we believe your financial statements are accurate and they're in compliance with our professional standards. The second type of opinion is what we call a qualified opinion, which means that for the most part, they're in compliance with our standards, but there may be a few exceptions to that. And then the third type is what we call an adverse opinion. An adverse opinion means we do not believe the financial records are reliable, they're not in compliance with our standards. So I am pleased to announce that for March 31st, 2024, the village did receive a clean or unmodified audit opinion from our firm. Just to clarify, our opinion is only on the accuracy and reliability of the financial statements. We're not providing an opinion on the financial health of the village. That's not the focus of our audit. All right, so moving over to the slides. Maybe.
Good thing we have the hard copy.
Yeah. All right. The first fund I want to talk about is the general fund. The general fund primarily derives its revenues from property taxes, state shared revenues, and federal, state, and local grants. So here we're looking at the balance sheet for the general fund. You can see the general fund had about $2,325,000 of assets on hand at the end of the year. The majority of that is in cash, so liquid assets of about $1.5 million. You can see you had about $174,000 of liabilities against those assets to finish the year with an ending fund balance level of about $1,579,000. Now, that ends up being about 150% of your annual revenues in your general fund. I'm going to talk about the general fund balance at the end of my presentation in a little bit more detail. On the next slide, this is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the general fund. So this is the income statement for the general fund for the audit year. So you can see you generated about $1,036,000 of revenues in general during the year. You spent about $962,000 in general, so you had an increase to your fund balance level in general during the year of about $73,000. I do want to point out one expenditure here while we're on this slide. You can see that the general fund transferred money to other funds, to another fund of $140,000. So during the 23-24 audit year, your general fund transferred $140,000 over to water during the year. In the next slide, we're specifically looking at sources of revenues in the general fund. And here, we're comparing 2024 to 2023. So you can see in 2023, your general fund generated about $977,000 of revenues, and it generated about $1,036,000 of revenues for 2024. When you compare the 2 years, you can see that one of the major changes is property taxes. So you generated about $407,000 in property taxes during 2023 and about $463,000 during 2024. Now to clarify, that's not because property tax rates increased, because they did not. Property tax rates did not increase. It's because taxable values throughout the village increased from 2023 to 2024. And you can see, really that accounts for almost all of the increase in revenues between 2023 and 2024. Looking at the pie chart, that really drives the point home that your general fund is primarily supported by property taxes and state shared revenues. So you can see property taxes made up about 45% of your revenues, and state shared revenues about 22%. So those two revenue sources made up about 67% of your annual revenues in general during the year. In the next slide, I apologize, this one's tough to read, but hopefully it's easier in front of you. Here we're looking at expenditures by type in the general fund. Again, we're comparing 2023 to 2024. You can see total expenditures were about $826,000 in 2023, and they were about $962,000 in 2024. Almost all of the difference is the transfers. So the majority of the difference between 23 and 24 is the $140,000 that the general transferred over to the water fund in 2024. And then, if you notice the pie chart, a significant portion of the general fund expenditures were for wages and other payroll-related costs. You would expect that. The village offers, DPW services and police services to the residents, which are labor-intensive departments. So you would expect wages to be a significant part of expenditures in your general fund. I do also want, yes, sir.
I just wanted to mention that we do have an agreement with, a council agreement, principally through, and to pay back for the transfer for water. There's a good reason to transfer, and we got great benefit out of doing that. Got a benefit before we had to pay for it, so, and we do have a schedule for payback, so, just in case anybody on council is concerned about that.
I do want to point out one expenditure is capital outlay. So capital outlay expenditures are major capital purchases or improvements for the general fund during the year. And you can see you spent about $114,000 in capital outlay in general during 2024. That's primarily made up of, during the 23-24 fiscal year, the DPW department purchased a leaf vac for about $83,000, so that's included in capital outlay. The police department also purchased police radios and a laptop, and I think you also had a furnace and air conditioning unit work included in the 23-24 fiscal year. So that is what the capital outlay is comprised of during 2024. The next funds I want to talk about are the street funds. These are a little bit different than the general fund in that these are what we refer to as special revenue funds. We call them special revenue funds because their fund balance levels, their fund balances are restricted for a special purpose. And that's for the maintenance and construction of streets throughout the village. In other words, the fund balance levels in these funds can't be used for general operating purposes. They have to be restricted for streets. So the major local street funds primarily derive their revenues from distributions from the state of Michigan, from MDOT, under Public Act 51 of 1951. And then for municipal street, it derives its revenues from property taxes. So you have a tax millage for streets, and that's what the municipal street fund is. So in looking at the balance sheet for these three funds, beginning with local street, you can see it had about $73,000 of total assets on hand at the end of the year. It had about $16,000 of liabilities against those assets and finished with about a $57,000 fund balance level. Major Street had about $255,000 of assets on hand, about $25,000 of liabilities against those assets, to finish the year with an ending fund balance level of about $231,000. Municipal Street had about $422,000 of assets on hand, about $11,000 of liabilities, to finish with an ending fund balance level of about $411,000. Now looking at the income statement for these three funds, you can see local streets generated about $459,000 of revenues during the year. But if you notice, the largest source of revenue is transfers from other funds. So during the audit year, your municipal street fund transferred $400,000 over to local streets. And you are allowed to do that. So the bottom line is with these three funds, as long as the money is used for streets, that's okay. So the municipal street fund can actually, pay for street projects directly, or it can transfer money over to local and major streets to help with projects over in those funds. So you can see the local street fund generated $459,000 during the year. It spent about $445,000. So it had a slight increase to its fund balance level of about $14,000. Now I want to point something out here under expenditures. You can see local street actually had significantly more what we call highways and streets expenditures than both major and municipal combined. And that's because there was a significant project going on in local streets during the year, which is why municipal transferred the money over. So that was the Lathrop Street project, which was about $339,000 was spent on that during the 23-24 fiscal year. So that's what happened over in local streets during the year. And then you can see in major streets, it generated about $156,000 during the year. It spent about $73,000 and had an increase to its fund balance level of about $83,000. Municipal street generated about $196,000, again, primarily from that property tax millage. It spent about $456,000. The majority of it was the $400,000 transfer to local streets. So it actually used up about $260,000 of its fund balance level during 2024. Now when you look at the fund balance levels, you really need to look at all of these combined because they're really used for the same purpose. So when you combine them, the total fund balance levels is about $699,000. So what that amounts to is roughly 86% of total revenues for the three funds, or if you look at it as a level of expenditures, it's about 72% of expenditures, or roughly 9 months worth of expenditures sitting in ending fund balance when you combine these three funds. I have a couple of slides here where I get into some trend analysis, beginning with property taxes. Going back to 2020, you can see that you generated about $544,000 of property taxes during 2020. You generated about $564,000 in 2022, and then you generated, as I mentioned in a previous slide, about $648,000 of property taxes during 2024. So you can see a positive or upward trend in property tax revenues here. You generated about $104,000 more in property taxes in '24 than you did back in 2020. And just to reiterate, this is not because property tax rates have increased since 2020, because they have not. It's because property taxable values have increased from 2020 to 2024. Now, the one thing that's interesting about this slide is that if we took this back to 2009, the village actually generated about $612,000 of property taxes back in 2009. So you can see from 20 to 24, you see an upward trend here in property taxes. But in 2024, you only generated about $36,000 more in property taxes than you did back in 2009. And that's because of the limitations placed on property taxes, the caps in the state of Michigan. So you have Proposal A, which places a limit on the growth of individual properties in the village. And then you have the Headley Amendment, which comes in and places a limitation on the village as a whole. So what ended up happening is in 2010, property values declined very sharply because of the poor economy. Taxable values followed suit. Property taxes followed suit. There is no limitation on the decline or decrease in property taxes, only on the increase in a year. So it has literally taken the village about 14 or 15 years to climb out of the hole that it experienced back in 2010. This is not a situation that's unique to the village of Armada. This is something that's happened in most communities throughout the state of Michigan. You finally made it out of it from 2010. It only took 14 or 15 years. This next slide, this is the historical fund balance trend for your general fund. You can see you finished 2020 with an ending fund balance level of about $1,026,000. It came up to about $1,355,000 at the end of 2022, and finished 2024, as I mentioned, with an ending fund balance level of about $1,579,000. Again, in my final 2 slides, I will talk about fund balance a little bit more detail. The last fund I want to talk about briefly, the last 2 funds, are the water and sewer funds. Now, these funds are what we call proprietary or enterprise funds. We call them proprietary funds because they're actually accounted for more like a for-profit private business than a government. And that's because the village owns the water and sewer plants themselves and all the major infrastructure associated with the plants, and it charges the residents and the other users for use of the systems. So these 2 funds are supposed to be self-sustaining funds. So here, we're looking at the statement of net position. Beginning with sewer fund, you can see it had about $6,853,000 of assets on hand at the end of the year. But you can see right above the total assets, there's this asset category here called non-current assets, fixed assets. So these fixed assets, this is the actual sewer plant itself and all the major infrastructure associated with the plant. These are not liquid assets. So number one, it's not cash, nor are they assets that can be easily converted into cash. So out of the $6,853,000 of assets, about $6,170,000 is tied up into those non-liquid assets. So looking at liabilities, you had about $4,060,000 of liabilities against the assets. The majority of that is in the form of your sewer system bond of $3,915,000. That matures in 2040, so it's going to be on the books for a while. You can see your ending net position in sewer was about $2,793,000, but looking at the 2 categories of net position, you have invested in fixed assets net of the related debt, so that represents your net position that's tied up in those non-liquid assets. So really you need to focus on what we call the unrestricted net position, which is your liquid net position of about $538,000. Moving over to water fund, you see a similar situation here. You have total assets of about $3,934,000, but the majority of that is tied up in those non-liquid assets. And that was about $3,622,000 during the year. You had total liabilities in water of about $94,000. One good thing about water, you can see you have current portion of long-term debt of $65,000. That's your dwarf bond from 2004 that actually, I believe, is getting paid off this month. So October 2024, so you'll no longer have the dwarf bond on your books in the water fund. That will be gone after this month. You can see you had ending net position in the water fund of about $3,840,000. But again, focusing on the unrestricted or the liquid portion of the net position, that was about $283,000 at the end of 24. Now, just a little bit about on the unrestricted net position here. So for sewer, to put that into perspective, that's about 73% of your revenues generated in that fund, or about 67% of your expenses. In water, your unrestricted net position represents about 51% of annual revenues, or roughly 63% of expenses in that fund. Next couple slides here, I want to talk about your general fund balance level. I know a lot of questions do come up periodically about it. So, your fund balance is generally measured as a percentage of revenues or expenditures. And the reason I say this is, for years, the Michigan Department of Treasury always looked at your fund balance level as a percentage of your annual expenditures. For whatever reason, now they're looking at it as a percentage of your revenues. That's apparently the new benchmark they're using. An appropriate fund balance is really a community-by-community decision. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer to what is an appropriate fund balance level. For example, the city of Detroit, an appropriate fund balance level for them may be 10% of annual expenditures. That's likely a large number. However, due to the budget size, someone like the village of Armada, if your fund balance level was 10%, that would leave you with about $100,000 in reserves, which likely would not be appropriate. It would probably be too low. $100,000 really doesn't leave much for, unanticipated events or costs that may pop up during the year. It really doesn't leave you with a whole lot. So really, you need to consider your budget size. What's the scale? You need to look at future planned expenditures, which leads into long-term forecasting. You also have to look at the health of other funds. You can't look at the general fund in a vacuum. So, if you have a really healthy fund balance in your general fund, but you have 2 or 3 other funds that are struggling, you may need your general fund balance to assist with those other funds. That's the one great thing about the general fund, is it is the fund that offers you the most flexibility with use of funds. In other words, for streets, if you have money in your street funds, they have to be used for streets. If you have money in your water and sewer funds, they have to be set aside and restricted for water and sewer. For the general fund, as long as it is an expenditure that is appropriate and allowable for a municipality, the general fund really can help other funds out, which is really why you need to consider the health of your other funds when you're looking at your general fund balance level. And of course, governing body philosophy is important, and that really can be all over the board. Some are very conservative. Some want to leave, a minimal amount in general fund balance levels. As I mentioned previously, your general fund balance level is about 152% of revenues for the year ending March 31st, 2024. Or if we want to look at it as a percentage of expenditures like we used to, it's about 164% of expenditures, or another way to look at it is how many months worth of expenditures do we have in fund balance? You had about 19 or 20 months worth of expenditures in ending fund balance at March 31st, 24. Now, the most current and best data we have out there is the state of Michigan actually performed a fund balance study based on the fiscal year 2019. Unfortunately, it's 5 years old, but it's the most current data we have. I think they did it because they had free time because of COVID. It's not coincidental. But what they discovered is that the median fund balance level for all villages throughout the state was about 81% of annual revenues. Now, if we turn back time, your general fund balance at the end of 2019 was actually about it was between 80 and 81%. So you were pretty much right in the median fund balance level for all villages in 2019. However, as I mentioned, at the end of March 31st, 2024, it is 152% of revenues. So recommendations. I think it's important to discuss potential unexpected events or planned expenditures in the next 5 years, which really leads into having a discussion about long-term forecasting and a capital improvement plan. So most communities that I see have a 5, 10, and 15-year capital improvement plan, and that really kind of, plays into the fund balance discussion, because your fund balance level justifies, what you have for future planned expenditures. Capital improvements is a big part of that. And then consider establishing a fund balance policy. A lot of communities have a fund balance policy. Now, what I see in practice and what I would recommend is don't have a fund balance policy that is set in stone. So don't say the general fund will have a fund balance level equal to 20% of annual expenditure and revenues. Most of them approach it as a minimum fund balance level. So I've seen them anywhere for 10% or 25%. So I see a lot of communities establishing minimum fund balance level. So I'm not saying you do this, but you would establish a fund balance level, a minimum fund balance level of 25% of annual expenditures, for instance. So what that means is once you get down to that level or approach that, you really need to start, it kind of prompts you to start taking action to make sure you're increasing your fund balance level back up once it gets to that minimum level. So that's typically what I see in practice.
I think possibly we're in a little bit of a unique position. At least my thinking is our fund balance has increased since 2019. But the main reason it's increased is because of STI. Because that's helped so much with the expenditures in the police department. Had we not had STI, we would still be, we would be much lower.
That's correct.
And, one of my concerns is, I don't know that this will go on forever, is, you know, it's not a revenue flow that we can depend on for the next 20 years or so.
Correct, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, and chime in as the attorney, but there was a significant law change with the salvage title inspection program maybe, I don't know, 6-7 years ago that made it so that you could spend the funds or it provided more flexibility for spending the funds than you could.
That was
prior.
generated
Jeff-
from us.
That was
You are
Jeff Herring.
representative.
That was right,
Yeah.
that was correct.
Yep,
We actually did that for the entire state, kind of.
Yes.
yeah,
But you are correct. That is one of the primary reasons you had an increase. in
That's
your
always
general
a
fund
worry
balance.
to me, that someday we won't be getting. You know,
Right.
hopefully not, hopefully we'll always have it, and guys like Andrew will keep helping us a lot. Well,
No pressure.
you guys do a lot to help the community here.
And I certainly, before I go on to any more questions or comments, I usually always add something on the slides about what we do during our audit, but I felt like the fund balance discussion was very important. But just really briefly describing our process. So, one major thing that we do is we look at all of the various, what I call accounting functions or in the accounting cycle. So, we're looking at purchasing, cash receipts, payroll, adjusting journal entries, bank reconciliations. We're also independently reconciling year-end accounts in order to produce the financial statements and provide an opinion on them. So purchases is a key point here. So we're actually looking at examples of invoices and purchases throughout the village. So number one, we're making sure that it's an appropriate purchase for a municipality in the state of Michigan. We're making sure it's been approved both by the department head and at some point it gets on schedule of bills for council. And then of course we're making sure that all those purchases are being accounted for properly in the village's accounting records. Cash receipts is a big one. We're looking at cash receipts and tracing them, from the time they get here into the village office and making sure they get to the bank and that there's no delay in those deposits. We're looking at payroll. So we're looking at samples of payrolls, making sure employees are getting paid for time actually spent working at approved pay rates, which have been approved here at the council level. Bank reconciliations are obviously a huge part of our audit. And then we utilize an audit program, which is, I think of it as like a checklist. So our audit program, we have some audit procedures that we have to perform in order to meet our professional standards as CPAs. And then what we actually do is we spend a lot of time before we even start looking at anything. We do risk assessment. So we come in and we try to figure out what can go wrong for the village. And then we will actually design audit procedures that are very specific to those risks that we go through before we start getting really too deep into the audit. And then of course we prepare the financial statements, provide an audit opinion, and then we also file all the various state reports, which is the F-65. I always describe to people an F-65 is almost like a tax return for a municipality. Of course, there's nothing due on it. And then the Act 51 reporting for the street funds, and then some of the other various like CVTRS reports for the village in order to get your extra state revenue sharing that you get from the state. And then of course we're in constant contact with the village throughout the year. And Joe, obviously you know from when you were here, and then Ann, Michelle, and Becky. So we have a great working relationship with the village. We encourage you guys to contact us throughout the year. For us, there's nothing worse than us coming in after the year is over without ever being in contact with you. Because if you guys are constantly reaching out to us and talking to us, it allows us to head off problems early throughout early on in the year. That way they don't become major problems when the time that we come in after the year is over and start doing our significant audit procedures. So I just want to, and again, your office does a great job. Obviously it's a small village, small office, but with what they have, they really do a great job. You have good people in those positions.
Good to hear.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Curtis.
Thanks a lot, Curtis. So, okay,
Hey, Curtis, can we cover that
Yeah.
front thing? It's just blinding me a little bit. I see spots on that.
Just unplug it.
so I guess, moving on.
No, we have
No.
to approve it, accept it.
Oh, okay.
Anybody else reading the motion?
I would resolve to accept the audit for fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024, and to place it on file.
Support,
Is it Mike?
Shaw.
You're Mike, he's Michael. That's just how I'm doing it.
So, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Now we're covered with the auditor's report.
Yeah.
You gotta do one more.
I guess they think you did okay, Curtis.
Do we have to do another one?
No, that was if we didn't accept it.
Oh, I thought single audit.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the next item, place best purchase is, Joe's.
Yeah, we've talked about this for several meetings, and things kind of adjust back and forth a little bit. I mean, availability of the vests and how many we need. Chief has prepared this information, that the Armada Police policy and procedure requires that an officer wear ballistics body armor while on patrol. He currently has 2 officers who do not have current non-expired body armor that fits them. Armada Village Police applied for and just received approval for the purchase of up to 8 vests. The federal government pays half the cost of the vest, with Armada Village paying the other half. He is requesting approval to buy 3 vests, with 1 being held in case of need. It's not gonna be distributed out just yet. And that is included in the 8. Originally, he thought that the 1 extra that he was holding was going to be an extra vest. With the changing in part-time officers, it's fallen into place to where that will be the one that's on hold. So the vest will be purchased at On-Duty Gear in Clinton Township for $770 per vest. The wait time to receive them is about 3 months. And Chief, thank you for your consideration. So, I would read the question.
I do have a
Thank
question.
you.
We're approving the purchase for 2310, that's the total invoice cost, but the cost to the village
Is half.
will be half. I think the motion's right, I just wanna make sure everybody understands that.
Should we add with the?
No,
Okay, just-
Our cost will be half of the 2,300.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, right, Joe? That's why I was asking, I wanna make sure.
So we do some quick math of $770 times 8.
So, we're getting 3, and we only have 2 officers that need one. What, are we hiring somebody new for the new one, or the other one?
Because we're getting an extra one at half off, so it's included in the 8 that we qualify for.
But my question is,
I think Andrew wants to say something.
yeah, we don't, these vests have to be custom made to fit the officer, or they're not effective. And how can you buy a spare vest when we don't have a body to fit it on?
Because they're custom to a point. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, do they actually,
They come in and measure us, so I don't know how they're custom to a point. They come in and measure us, the rep does, that's how they're ordered.
Right.
okay,
So
So,
you can't just order a generic adjustable one. It's fitted to a
Correct.
person.
okay.
So that's my objection to the third one, is being spare, and these weren't in the budget, and by the time we receive the funds back from this, it's gonna fall into the next year.
But you say we would be getting that one
But
do
it's
any
not
good
gonna
if
be
it's not
made,
fitted.
it won't be made until it's needed.
Oh, so on hold, cause you
Yeah.
had said it's on hold, so they just keep our
They paid
information,
it.
and when we get a new officer,
And
then,
then you just don't
We've
order
got the
it.
credit for it.
Yeah, the credit.
sounds good.
Are we gonna,
I wonder if he's, Andrew, I don't know if you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think what the chief is basically saying is, I want council approval to purchase 3
Yeah.
over time, not right? Rather than going right now and buying 3, he's saying, I want approval to purchase 3
3 within this grant.
with,
within
We-
the grant
okay.
period?
If I may,
yeah.
we have 200 and some odd dollars left from the first grant we received. We have to use that money first, obviously. We just received approval for the new grant, 2,600 some dollars for the new grant. So if he's trying to loop all this together, if that's what he's doing, I don't know. So, but I know we've got one vest in for one of the officers that he's talking about, and then the other one's been ordered to use the money from the first grant. So that much I do know.
So maybe the
I
motion
think we
should,
should put this on hold until we have clarification from him, because our understanding was he wanted an extra one sitting back there.
I mean, if we change the motion to say, on duty gear at a cost not to exceed 2310, and to purchase within the grant period, or, I mean, kinda looking at you, Andrew, sorry. I know you don't know, but, I mean, I'm
Okay,
just,
I can tell you this,
Prior to
The-
the expiration of the grant?
the initial, the 200 and some dollars we had left in the first grant expired at the end of November. And I know we won't be able to get our second lump of money until that money is used.
how
So,
much is a vest?
700 and,
So can you take 200 out of that grant, and then 550 out of the next?
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
As long as the serial
First
numbers
grant is
and what
used.
officers are getting them are submitted by November 30th. That's
Okay.
the important thing.
Okay,
Why don't we just do 2? Because we know we need 2.
And the grant will still be sitting there, so if next week we got another one needed it. Exactly.
well, okay, I guess,
That makes more sense.
to do 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna say purchase of 2. Now somebody do math.
It's 1540.
All these accountants here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody should know the
Yes,
answer.
sir. I was gonna put you on the spot, Michael. Alright, okay, alright.
Okay.
Well, I guess I do have a question, because, well, Andrew, I'm gonna, you win again. So we buy the vest for, and we have 18 guys on the roster, okay? So we buy them for them and custom fit when they leave, what happens to that vest?
I believe the policy right now says they take it, do they leave it here if they haven't been here for a certain amount of time? But again.
You don't have to stand every time.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
But again,
I don't know, and if that's the current policy, that if they leave, they take it with them. But as you said, it's custom fit for them.
Yeah, that's what, well, I guess that's my question. I mean, I'm all for you guys having the right vest, so I'm
Right.
not saying that.
right,
Um,
but someone who doesn't work here for, I think we need to add to the policy that they need to be here for a certain amount of time, or they need to reimburse the department for the vest, if they're gonna take that with
it's
them.
a grant,
That's
so
up
I don't
here.
know if you can do that.
That's
Yeah.
above me.
Yeah.
The
Your pay
policy
grade, yeah.
doesn't have anything to do with the grant.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess that
think
was just
something
my,
we need to
you know,
look
'cause I'm thinking when he said it's custom made, it's like, we have so many part-time officers
And
right now.
Chief did talk to me about that, and I don't know that he gave me a time frame, or he said he would come up with a time frame, that if they did leave within 30 days, 60 days of receiving the grant, they would owe the money back.
Okay.
And then one of the officers said, how about if I just give you the vest back?
But my point is, it's like, it's not going to be custom
May
fit.
not fit this next
Right.
person exactly.
Right,
Right,
okay.
And you don't
I don't
wanna
want
be wearing
ill-fitting.
somebody else's vest.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys wear them under their shirts and, you know, it's,
They,
Well, not only
they,
that.
they get a little stinky once.
they do.
I wasn't gonna say
It's
that, I
not
was gonna
really
say
that
they just wouldn't fit
hygienic
properly.
to do that, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, well, we'll just have to get some
Right, I think we
clarification
just
on
need to
that.
look at that policy, and just to point out too, that every officer, that's $770 for the vest, and don't forget, we also, the $350 for a uniform allowance, so every time he adds more people, it's costing over $1,000.
Okay, alright, okay, I just wanted to, I needed some
So
clarification.
you could make your
I can see.
motion.
Okay. So I would resolve to approve the purchase of 2 ballistic body armor vests from on-duty gear at a cost not to exceed $1,540.
Support.
Support by Clark.
Yeah.
Okay, take a roll call, please.
Hold on, let me get everything. Adair,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Belkey,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Barzak, I had that wrong, and Barzak,
Yes.
Stirring.
Yes.
Oh, that is a BA, I did write it right, I just couldn't read it.
Motion's approved. Okay, moving on to, Curtis, you're certainly welcome to stay, but you do not have to stay for the whole meeting.
We'll stay.
Okay.
It's a really weird
Big
meeting.
one.
Okay, now, item C, mandated training for all police officers. Joe?
Okay. This is, training that all officers everywhere have to have. So, Chief has put together some information for you. That the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards had mandated a required amount of training hours for all police officers starting in July of 2024. Group training for the Armada Police Department would be impractical, and the best way would be online learning with each officer logging in as it was convenient for the officer. Each officer would complete their training when they are working as to keep training costs down. Some Armada officers work at other departments and any training completed in those departments would count towards the required state minimum. The state of Michigan has sent Armada a check for $2,500 to reimburse Armada for this required training. I'm requesting your approval to obtain virtual academy at $50 per officer account per year. I don't understand that statement. A $50 per officer account per year. I'm requesting $1,500 total approval in case I have any incidental costs. And of course, he thanks you for your consideration. But we won't be paying for every single officer on the department, because those that work for other departments have already had this training. That counts anywhere you go.
So why is he asking for 1,500? At $50 an officer, that's 30, and we have about 20. We have about 20. And I get incidentals, but I don't understand his logic.
Well, it says that the state of Michigan has already sent Armada a check for $2,500. Is that
Right, but he's asking to spend 1,500 of it for this program, correct? $50 per officer. And not all of them will need to be trained, because they've been trained in other departments where they work.
exactly?
So why does he need to use that much for that training?
Yeah, it's like $4,000, I mean, it's 25 plus the 15, cause we got 25.
No.
No, you got
They gave
25.
us- Oh, we got
Of that
25. I'm sorry.
25, he's
I
asking
stand
for
corrected.
1,500 of it.
Well, I think he wants some extra there,
Just to cover himself, so he doesn't have to come back. So.
Joe, we didn't put any of the,
Yeah, we
when
got
you and I
the
worked on the
motion.
motion, when you wrote that, we don't have anything about the money.
You're right.
Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah, I just, to
Okay.
approve the expenditure of $1,500 for implementation of the new can you just, here,
Okay,
be
to
not
approve
to
the
exceed.
expenditure of $1,500 for
or
the.
up to 15, whatever you prefer, Ross.
Yeah.
I like up to. Up to
For
$1,500 for,
This is gonna be, you're gonna be making the motion on this, Joe? Okay. Joe,
For
you're making that
implementation and the
motion.
rest of it.
and then the rest is fine.
So, do you have the motion written?
I do.
Okay.
You want me to give it to you, Joe?
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
Okay, resolve to approve the implementation.
No.
To approve the expenditure of up to
Up to
$1,500 for the implementation and then the
Yeah,
rest.
yeah. There you go.
And then just for the implementation.
So to approve the expenditure of up to $1,500 for the implementation of the newly state mandated police training for all of our officers, police officers, with the exception of our part-time officers that also work for other departments that completed the training at their other departments.
Support.
Mike.
Motion by Dare, supported by Shaw. And we gotta have a roll call on this.
Adair,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Stirrit,
Yes.
Garzick, Belkey,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to item D. Resolution adapting the interagency audiovisual recording standard mutual assistance agreement between Macomb County Sheriff's Office and the Village of Armada Police Department. Joe, you are really on the,
The only one spending money?
She's done after this. She's done after this.
Okay, you all have a copy of the resolution, I hope you've read it. So,
Let's make the motion.
alright. To approve the resolution, wait a minute, 'cause it doesn't.
Do you want me to jump in?
Well, I just, I want them cold in there somewhere, I don't see that in the resolution, so.
It doesn't need, we don't need them called now.
Alright,
So, just real quick, maybe help, because the chief did send it to me. So, MCOs kind of came out and visited the department, they reviewed procedures, and they basically said that, for purposes of in-custody interrogation, you have to meet a certain standard. For Armada PD to do that in-house requires substantial capital investment. You gotta have, soundproof rooms, a whole bunch of technical things to comply. So the alternative, which is a good one, because it's not costly, is to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the sheriff. They're willing to provide their interview rooms for our use. So it's a good workout. So we get the MCO's compliance at minimal cost. I hope that's-
alright. So on the resolution, Jeff, do you, want me to
I
add?
think the motion's is good.
You don't, so you don't need to know, that you're authorizing the police to sign this agreement?
You're right, that should be, well, no, you know what, I think it's actually in the, if they adopt
It's in the resolution.
It's in the resolution, so we're good.
Yeah, we're adopting the resolution.
That's right.
Alright, I would so resolve to approve the resolution adopting the interagency audio-visual recording standard mutual assistance agreement between the Macomb County Sheriff's Office and the Village of Armada Police Department effective immediately upon adoption.
Support.
Support by Belkey. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay. Here's one of Ann's favorite things, budget amendments. You wanna take that in?
This was for the lead line verification that Ross has been having the water department do, or what DPW's helping.
And Eagles been
And it's been requiring. When we did the budget, Ross had applied for the grant, but we did not know at that time if we were gonna get it. So the original amount under grants received was 0. So I had to add the amount in. And actually Ross pointed out to me tonight that the grant was actually $61,020 rather than 16. So if you wanna mark that on your sheet. And then the capital outlay, we had budgeted for 48,000, but then when we had to do more line verification, it increased that cost by 51.5. So I've added that to it, making it 99.5 now, so when you do all the math, it comes out that the checking account balance is actually about $10,000 more than it was before, because we didn't have the grant in there. So once you take the grant into consideration and the difference in what we did not account for in the expense, we're a little bit ahead there.
Yeah, just for clarification, the TMF grant was specifically for lines that we suspected to have lead or galvanized pipe previously connected to lead. So we had, in the budget, we had put more money in there to do a number of lines, but the grant was only for a subset of those lines. So that's why you're seeing a lesser amount back. And it was that amount that we generally expected to do, approximately 83 lines. So of the 140 some lines that we did, so.
So on your sheets, if you wanna change your numbers, the 61 or 16 should be 20 instead.
So then it's gonna change our bottom line.
Your checking balance will move to 86,436.36, and the budget fund balance will be 134,436.36.
Let me take a crack at it then. Make a motion to approve the budget amendment for water department grants received and capital outlay expenditure, which is a lead line verification as presented, which brings the total estimated fund balance for the water fund from $124,916.36 to $104,436.36.
134,000.
What did I say?
You said 104.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 134,400
436.
to 436 and 36 cents.
Support.
Okay, we can do this on a roll call, can't we? Or we need to do it a roll call? Or can we just do it on,
I don't know. We can,
just making a budget amendment?
If somebody wants it to be a roll call,
It
they
can be.
can request, and it's usually granted, or you know, you're not expending the money, you're just, you're not.
We're actually
All in
taking money
favor of
in.
the motion?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Okay. Welcome to Armada signs.
Okay, I should really hold this off till the next meeting. This takes a little bit of discussion, but, we could've, yeah, I should've, but, okay, so we, in a previous meeting, you guys gave me permission to send out lease agreements or license agreements and letters to the property owners that have the Welcome to Armada signs on them. I've gotten 2 back. I did not get DTE yet, but the guy did come in and talk to me, so I expect to get that lease agreement back quickly. I'm kind of surprised that they came back as quick as they did. The 4th sign is the sign that's located just outside of town on township property. When we had our last meeting, you guys kind of all said, leave it where it's at, but then you decided, Ross asked for a little bit of time to find another piece of property, which he did, which is, it's next to the creek, on the north side of the creek, across the street from where we wanted to put it. He's talked to the owner of the property, they're fine with us placing it there and signing the agreement. But I guess the question to council is, do you wanna move it? If you wanna move it, we have a good place for it. If you wanna leave it where it's at, that's fine, I don't care either way, it really doesn't matter. This would put it inside the village limits rather than outside, and on the south side of Center rather than the north. So,
With the point being that if you're coming down Fulton Street, everybody sees it. You don't all see it, at least on a major access route, if it's out on North Avenue by the township. So you get greater visibility, it's promotion for the village. We ought to try to promote the village as much as we can. And if you got a sign that's not really doing that, because it's only reaching half the people, and they have a chance to move it in the village, I'd say move it in the village. Just to add, I did pass a draft copy of the license agreement to the owner. I did try calling him today, didn't get an answer, but he's got it in his mailbox. He didn't seem to be resistant at all to it, so I suspect he'll say go ahead. But I would like to contact him again, make sure he's got the license agreement, and he says, okay, let's continue.
so the discussion is really, I mean, what does council wanna do? I mean, I have to get the address, so while you're talking amongst yourselves, I'm gonna go grab that, the agreement, because I don't have the right address.
I've thought about this a lot, cause we've been discussing it for a few months. I've tried to visualize it. Myself, no offense, but I really prefer to keep it where it's at.
Is that the proposed rule, green dot?
Where Ross would like to move it,
Want
I
to
don't wanna
get
put
it inside
words-
the village limits.
he wants to move it inside, just on the north side of the bridge coming in.
Okay, so north side of the bridge.
Right now, what the sign is at, on the township property.
Right.
Myself, I think that fits better. Not that I wanna disagree, I don't think 50% of the people miss the sign. That's just my thinking, but whatever the council wants to do, is fine with me. If, Ross, you wanna make a motion to move the sign, or if somebody wants to make, I guess, a motion to
Well,
keep
the
the sign.
motion is to approve the resident letter, not letters,
Yeah.
and license agreement to allow the clerk to send to the property, and his address is actually on Burke Street, cause he lives on, or he owns a home on Burke Street, and the property goes all the way to Fulton.
So if we wanna leave
So it
it
doesn't
on,
have like it has a Burke Street address, but it's on Fulton, if that makes sense.
if we wanna leave it on, where
Then
it's at,
I would say
then we
choose-
wouldn't do this motion,
no, we would send it to,
the township.
the township maybe that's what that address is, 75400, yeah.
So it's the pleasure of the council here.
So where it's at now, we have approval to keep it there?
Not yet, I had not sent,
You're holding
She
we
would
were
send
not
the
going to
letter.
have a problem keeping it where it's at.
We've sent letters to everybody else,
Right.
except on this one, because there's been some questions.
Well, some discussion on where we
Yeah.
want it. So it boils basically just down to where do you want it positioned? I don't care, either way, it doesn't matter to me. It matters a great deal to Ross, I don't, it's,
Well, if you're gonna put signage up, why don't you have maximum visibility? And so again, it's not a big deal, I guess, but you've got a property owner now that's willing to allow it on his property inside of the village. You're gonna
just
change the
picture it
sign,
there.
so why wouldn't you put it inside the village, given you now have a prospective opportunity? The guy's got to sign a license agreement.
and ideally, it would be ideal if it was right on the corner, but neither of those properties
Yeah.
would, they're not big enough
Yeah.
to allow for it, so we wouldn't even approach them to ask them,
So-
Yeah.
So we've talked about this last meeting,
Right.
Ross has to hold it one more meeting.
because he wanted to
So
talk to
what
the
is
property
the
owner, which he did.
pleasure,
He did his due
pleasure of the
diligence.
council? Somebody make a motion and see where it goes.
Well, I think somebody that worked on it and could make a recommendation, or should make the recommendation where you think that it should
Right, but
go.
I think do you wanna wait until I get a positive thumbs up from the guy on the license agreement?
Well, I mean,
No,
he can
because
refuse
I
it,
think
you know.
we need, if we wanna make that move, I don't want you to be talking to this person and then
We
us
decide to
not
go
do
across
it or
the street,
something.
yeah.
Let's
Right.
see what the council wants to do
Yeah.
with the sign.
Alright.
The
Yeah.
question is, do you wanna leave the sign where it's at, or do you wanna move it?
Do you wanna?
Well,
It's up to you guys.
Well, okay, but that's not the motion, but,
No, it's not, the motion, cause the motion can go either way, we can send it to the township,
right.
you know, their property,
So-
you know, for their property, or we can send it to the
I
Geimer,
would
that's
say-
what the motion is.
Pulse the group then and see what they
Yeah.
wanna do. I've done the legwork and we got a prospective opportunity, so.
Let's
So-
look on the tax rolls too, because there's a little easement in there, it's like 30 feet wide, that used to belong to
Jerry.
Jerry Wyland.
Is that the one?
It's not on the, it's not on there.
Yeah, and it might be too close to the, you know, that creek floods, so, I mean, you gotta also be careful, you know, with that, but it, that was,
Sign can stand up like 4 or 5 feet at least.
oh, it is, no, the sign's not gonna flood out, I'm just saying, it's like, the closer you get to the creek, the deeper that gets, cause it goes down on a slope, so. But, again, it's just a matter of where you wanna place it, if you wanna keep it where it's at, I'll send the letter to the township, probably in November. If it's, if you wanna send it to the property owner on the inside of the village, then I can send that out too. It does, I just need to know what direction council wants to go in.
Michelle, on the other three that have gone through here very quickly, was the motion to approve the license agreement with that
I think so.
property owner?
I thought it was just to approve to send the letters.
Approve the resident letters and the license agreement and allow the clerk, I mean, this one, yeah, this is the same motion I
It is
used
the
for
same
the other
motion,
two.
Okay.
I don't have a copy of them, but obviously it's the same thing we've done 3 times already, so.
Yeah, so,
It's
Michelle
just-
did fill out a draft license agreement, put his property description and so on, but
It's
we
just a draft.
wrote draft on the top, we said, don't sign anything. Want to see what council wants to do.
Yeah.
But, so we have the opportunity, again,
Does somebody wanna make a motion?
Or offer an opinion.
to move it or to, again.
Well, again, we
What
could
do you
just say
think
to
to do?
approve the resident
I'd be
letter
happy
and the
to-
license agreement to
I
allow the
don't
clerk
care.
to
Make a
send
motion
to.
This side of the street or this side of the street?
Approve the resident letter, and the license agreement, allow the clerk to send to the,
To property
Property
address
address,
74885 Burke is,
seven
move it.
488. I thought it was 0, but is it 5?
I have 5.
Okay, 5 Burke, Armada, Michigan.
So motion by Ross Belkey, do I have a support? Support by Joe. Okay, I think we need a roll call on this.
Until I get a new stamp, this just takes a bit. Okay, Belkey,
Yes.
Adair,
Yes.
Shaw,
No.
Clark,
No.
Conan,
No,
Barzick,
Yes.
Stirrup.
No.
Okay,
so,
so do you wanna do the, shall we
Okay.
do the other
is it
motion?
4-3?
Yes,
Yes.
Motion
fail,
fails 4-3.
yeah. So,
Now, do we wanna have a motion to
somebody make another motion then to do 75400 North Avenue.
Okay, that would be the
That's the town,
township.
that's the parcel of
Where it's
land
now.
that it is now.
Okay, can I have can we have a motion on that?
I would say the motion, but I'd probably screw it up. Can you say it, Michelle, and then I just say?
Say it.
To approve the resident letter, even though it's going to the township, to approve the resident letter and the license agreement, and allow the clerk to send to property 75400 North Avenue, Armada, Michigan.
So moved.
Do we have a second to that
Support.
motion?
Hold on,
And another,
Yep.
roll call.
I didn't allow for this.
So it has to go somewhere, so am I
Yes.
voting
Yeah.
yes now? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
Well, you,
You go
I-
any way you
Yes.
want.
I really didn't, I didn't really care, but if it's a little bit more visual and it was in the village, I did like that idea, but
yeah,
it
no,
has to
you
go,
don't
it has to
No.
go
you don't have to
somewhere.
explain yourself, do
that,
not.
vote the
Hey, I'm a
way
little
you
new to
feel.
this.
So
Okay.
on the other property that we just voted on, there's like 5 lots back and forth that he bought on at sale. So it might get a little confusing as to what lot you're actually putting it on.
No, Ross did his due diligence, I'm
Yeah.
not, yeah, I'm
We
not.
do have
I
a
spent my
motion
time
on,
and I did the work.
He did.
we have a motion on the floor. We gotta go with that. That
Okay.
was the other motion that you two are talking about now.
Okay,
This is the motion now.
alright, Sturut,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Barzick,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Conan,
Yes.
Adair,
Yes.
Belkey.
No.
Okay, motion's approved.
Okay, so I will send that other letter out, I have to get all the information right on it.
So now, moving to, the auditor's engagement
Oh,
letter.
see, he was hanging out for that last
We
meeting.
knew that was
He did not.
Are you getting engaged?
I don't think his wife would appreciate that.
22 years ago.
Alright, this comes every year, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on your toes, but this comes every year. It comes with, a slight increase to 1,700, like we say every year. Can't get better auditors than we have, and we appreciate the fact that they do let us call them and make them a little crazy at times, but no. But, so the engagement letter is for a year, correct, Curtis? Yep,
Correct.
till 2025. So this is so they can do our audit, we do this every year.
So, can we have a motion on that?
I would resolve to accept the auditor's engagement letter and to allow the village treasurer to sign on behalf of the village. And this engagement letter will be for 1 year.
If it's in there.
It's in the letter,
It's in
yeah,
the-
yep, yep.
Support.
Motion by Adair, supported by Shaw. All in favor,
No,
wait,
roll call.
okay, roll call,
Adair,
Yes.
Shaw,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Conan,
yes?
Belkey,
Yes.
Barzick,
Yes.
Sturut.
Yes.
Okay.
Curtis, if you wanna hang, I mean, I know you're not gonna get out of here very quick, but we'll have her sign it tonight and you can take your copy.
Thank you.
Alright.
Okay. Special event, permit application with the Armada Historical Society.
Oh, shoot, I forgot that was even
And
on there.
this is yours.
Well, okay, so I mean, Ross can probably chime in on this as well. Shoot, I don't know that I have mine. Oh, I do.
You want mine?
No, I got it. I thought we were on our last thing. So, the Historical Society, they're selling raffle tickets, and they're gonna do it up until holidays, correct? That's when you're gonna announce the winner.
Drawing is on
on holidays. So, we had gotten a special event permit application from the Historical Society asking, cause they wanted to be able to sell like on the sidewalk, you know, just walk up and down, set up a table, whatever. And they filled it all out, and as I was looking at it, they don't have us listed as additional insured. And so I contacted the gentleman that filled it out, which was not Ross, but filled out the application. And I explained to him that we have to be listed as additional insured. We just have to be, that's just a requirement that we have. And he had said that, just a nutshell, the email's in your packet, but that they're not in the position to consider the insurance requirement further at this time. They'd have to bring it up at their next regular membership meeting. Even then, I'm sure we can't
November.
justify the additional insurance premium because it does cost, I think it's minimal, but, you know, that's me. Additional insurance premium for the requested endorsement, and he feels that they submitted proof of adequate and sufficient insurance coverage, which they did for themselves, but if we're not listed, then our residents aren't protected. So, at this point in time, he asked me to just go through with asking council approval for the special event permit. If they don't get this, it just means that they won't be selling them on downtown sidewalks. They're welcome to go into Ross's building, or I'm sure anybody's building down there, and do them inside. It's not gonna hinder the sale of the tickets, it's just going to not allow them to do it on village property because we're not listed as additional insured. So, the resolution is to approve, and I should have put / or deny. So if you're, it's up to council. I held up given the Knights of Columbus theirs, because they didn't have us on as additional insured. We made Armada again just do it before their event. We actually made the event, the people they brought in for their event also add us on as additional insured. So it's something that's just part of our policy, and I think it really sets a bad precedent if we say, oh, you don't need to have it, because guess what, the next guy's gonna say, well,
If the historical society does it, say in Ross's building or out of the Lions Club or somewhere private property, they don't need this permit from us.
no, that's why you
Right.
deny it. Yeah,
So
that's why you
deny
don't approve it, you deny it. And again, like I said, it's not gonna hinder their sale. I mean, it's going to eliminate some of the traffic they're hoping to get, but
Yeah.
I
It just
can't,
reduces exposure. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Historical Society does not have deep pockets, as you probably know. One of the reasons for the raffle is to try to get some deep pockets. The money we get really goes back into the community and restoration of community historical assets. For example, we just renovated the old stoplight and four-way flasher that we have, so they're operational now. We're doing things for the fair, we're doing things for the township, we also do stuff for the village. So one of the things we're doing is getting that historical plaque for the village, the state historical monument with the badger on top. And but we don't have deep pockets, and so every bit of money that we can conserve helps. But I do understand the village's concern. It just costs us about $700 for insurance, and this adds to the cost of that. So, but as Michelle said, I am selling tickets inside of my business. We're probably gonna go sell tickets at Vinkers, and which is private property, and some other venues. But we have an opportunity to walk along the streets in the downtown area. That may give us some additional raffle ticket sales. The guy that submitted this is Greg Schultz. He's the vice president of the Historical Society. This is kind of his activity.
yeah,
But if you walk the streets selling tickets, then you need. the permit.
you need to have.
If the council feels that we need to have that.
Well, the problem
if
is
it's a
other
precedent,
organizations,
that if you-
we make other
Yeah.
organizations to do it. So anyhow, we need a motion to approve or deny the special event permit.
I would make a motion to approve the special event permit application from the Armada Area Historical Society between 10/15/24 and 12/7/24, between 8 AM and 6 PM to sell raffle tickets in the downtown business district, I would say.
Let's take a roll call.
No, you need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a second to that motion? Okay, no second then?
Somebody else
Okay,
needs to make the motion.
Then do we have a motion to deny?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can-
Do you
Yeah,
even
you
know,
need it.
need it?
Yeah, I have to, yeah.
I need someone to.
Do we have to write the whole thing or just deny the special?
No, just
Just
read
put-
the whole, well, you can,
Put deny instead of approve.
yeah.
Just put deny,
Motion to deny the special event permit application from the Armada Area Historical Society. Is that sufficient
That's
or do I need to
sufficient,
keep
yeah.
going?
Yeah, you don't have to get into the hours, 'cause
Yeah.
that's,
Support.
okay. All in favor?
you have to ask
No.
opposed.
Okay, yeah,
Any
Yeah.
opposed?
yeah, you're saying no, right?
Okay. Motion's approved. That was a very painful one because the Historical Society, is a very good thing for the village. And they are trying to do things for the village. But again, the Lions Club, the Knights of Columbus, they're trying to do things for the
This
village
is a
too.
long span of time, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's only because they're doing the raffle at, the actual drawing at Holidays. And it's not that they were gonna do it every day, it's just when somebody's available, you know, so it was easier just to have them put a long period of time, span of time, so they could do it on the weekends, or if they had somebody to do it.
So, okay, moving on. Upcoming agenda items, something we wanna add right now? Okay, well, if we don't have anything, remember to let Michelle know before the Wednesday before our next meeting. Citizen comments. Any citizen comments? Okay, council comments. Okay, how about community events? We got any community events coming up here between now and our next meeting?
Buy your raffle ticket.
Yeah, buy your raffle tickets.
Yes, we should all buy a raffle ticket.
Square odds.
No closed session tonight? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:35.
Motion by Starrett,
Support.
support by Clark. To adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
If we're gonna do
Opposed?
choose.
Meeting's adjourned.